On today's show, we're going to talk Falcons quarterback draft targets because the Desmond Ridder and or Taylor Heineke era has come to an end following Sunday's game. So I want to look at 5 quarterbacks in the draft the Falcons could trade up for or simply just select with their own pick if they fall to them. But I just want to get some good vibes out there right now because this is a fan base that has just seen slightly below average football play for about 6 straight years. Just 7-win season after 7-win season. So let's get some good vibes going out there. Like today's video, I want this to be the most liked Falcons video that we have done in the last year or so. So a lot to compete with from January 1st to now. So hit that thumbs up button if you have not already. Now let's talk NFL draft order because the Falcons currently have the number 9 overall pick at 7 and 9. But we still have week 18, which means we could see some shuffling. The NFL draft order is the reverse standings. And when there is a tie, it is not broken head-to-head initially. It is about the opponent's win percentage, and it's really confusing, and don't even try and figure it out because I spent an hour this morning wasting my time doing it. But if the Falcons lose against the Saints, they could fall to 8 if the Jets were to win, but they very well may stay at 9 right now. But let's say the Falcons beat the Saints and they finish the year 8 and 9. Well, depending on what the Bears and the Raiders and the Vikings do, along with the Saints and the Broncos, there's a lot of teams still. They could finish anywhere, I suppose, from 11 or 10 through 16. So we still have some very important Week 18 games coming up here. I know people might look at that and go, lose, lose, lose. You don't want to have a bad draft pick for a meaningless Week 18 game. I'm going to push back and say you want to install a winning culture. And if that means ending the year on a high note, I'll take it. Now let's look at some potential trade-up targets for the Falcons, starting with Caleb Williams and Drake Maye, who are likely, I'm not going to say likely, they are both going to go top 5 without a doubt in my mind, right? Both of these guys had fantastic collegiate careers. Caleb Williams starting off at Oklahoma and then finishing with a Heisman at USC. And then Drake Maye, 2 starting seasons in North Carolina where he lit it up for the Tar Heels. So both these guys, I don't think need much of an explanation as to why they are both going top 5. I'll pretty much book it right now. These 2 guys are not falling out of the top 5, which means if the Falcons want to get Caleb Williams or Drake Maye, they might have to pull off a trade that their division foe did last year, which isn't looking too great right now, but I don't think it's fair to compare Bryce Young to Caleb Williams. But Carolina gave up an arm and a leg, right? They swapped first-round picks. They gave up a future first, which we all know ended up being the first overall pick. They gave up a second-round pick in 2023 and 2025, and then DJ Moore. So we're talking 1 additional first-round pick, 2 seconds, and an impact player. So it cost the Falcons, it cost the Panthers a lot to give up and move up to get to number 1. I don't think Arthur Blank approves this. Like, that's the kind of trade that you need ownership permission to do. And I don't think we see that happen, right? I don't think this is something that Arthur Blank would give the approval on. So ultimately, this seems like too rich for the Falcons. It just doesn't really seem in their DNA. Let's throw on the 49ers trade, though, Steve. So what about moving from, maybe not all the way to 1, but maybe you want to know, what about getting to 3, right? What if number 1 is Caleb Williams? What if number 2 is Marvin Harrison? And then Atlanta wants to go to 3 to get Drake Maye. All right. Well, we could look at doing what the 49ers did when that was still extremely pricey, going from 12 to 3. Again, it's very important to know when you make that first-round pick swap, which the Bears and Panthers did last year from 1 to 9, and then the 49ers from 12 to 3, depending on how big of a drop it is for the team moving back, you're going to have to give up more, which means if the Falcons lose on Sunday, it won't be as big of a drop, or as they win, it's going to be a bigger drop, and they're going to have to pony up more, which the 49ers from 12 to 3 gave up 3 total first-round picks, a third-round pick to go along with it, and ultimately it amounts to absolutely nothing, and they are so lucky they found Brock Purdy with Mr. Irrelevant. So if you want to move up, listen, I'm not here to be the czar of don't move up, don't give up picks. It's not worth it. I ultimately think fans probably overvalue draft picks too much. I mean, how many of you guys, and you know who you are, and I know who you are, were telling me back in April last year, don't give up 2 first-round picks to get Lamar. I bet you'd rather give up 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson right now because this Falcons team would have won the NFC South if he was their quarterback. But would you trade up to get into the top 3? Similar to what Carolina and the 49ers gave up, would you give up all those picks and some players probably too to move all the way up to secure Caleb Williams or Drake Maye? Very curious to know how the fan base feels about giving up all that to get one of those premium quarterbacks. Now let's talk about guys that you might not have to give up so much to move up for, like Jayden Daniels or Michael Penix Jr., where Atlanta might not have to trade up at all to get one of these two guys, right? We're going to talk about that in more detail in just a moment. But today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Thanks to Prize Picks, I had an absolute blast watching football this year, winning up to 25 times my money. And now I'm also playing during basketball season as well. If you're not familiar with Prize Picks, you pick 2 to 6 players and then select more or less on their projected stats. So let me give you my Week 18 selections. I'm taking the less on C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback in a high-pressure game. I think we might see him choke a little bit. I like the more on Drake London and Bijan Robinson. Arthur Smith may very well be coaching for his job, and I bet he goes to his top guys. I also like the more on Jonathan Taylor's rushing yards. Playoff game for the Colts as well, and I could see Indianapolis pounding the rock. So if you like my selections, feel free to ride with me over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I've put that link in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Now let's talk about Jayden Daniels and Michael Penix, because if you watch the Sugar Bowl, there's just no way you came out of that without being in love with Michael Penix Jr. He was throwing the ball accurately with high velocity all across the field, making every type of throw possible. And then there's Jayden Daniels, who won the Heisman. Huddle up for a moment. These are our guys. These are our targets, right? Caleb Williams and Drake Maye are going to have great NFL careers, in my opinion. But it's going to cost so much to get up and get them. Whereas if the Falcons pick between 8 and 12, give or take, they either A, might not have to move up at all, or B, a very minuscule jump. Now, if you want more comparisons on these two players, Jayden Daniels and Michael Penix, they are both going to check a lot of categories for scouts, right? They got the height, they've got the body frame. The age is a concern for some, 23 years old. I'm not concerned about it. Go look at some quarterbacks around the NFL right now. It almost appears that the older they get, the better they get in a lot of ways. So I'm not concerned about these guys coming in maybe a year or two older. This is not the NBA. This is the NFL. And the quarterback position specifically requires a lot of maturity and professionalism. And when you're 20, 21 years old, you might lack some of that. And the NFL is a not-for-long league. They need results quickly. Whereas Penix and Daniels come with a little bit more maturity and a lot more experience, both starting 5 seasons in college football. My selection between these two, I really go back and forth because I think Michael Penix is a very special player, but I would err on the side of caution. And I picked Jayden Daniels because, unfortunately, and it's not fair to Penix, he's coming to the NFL with 2 torn ACLs. Like, not at the moment, but, before, and he got surgery. So that's just a very tough thing for a team to stomach as a first-round pick, going, we're going to invest our future in a quarterback who tore his ACL not once but twice in college. Now, since then, like those were during his Indiana days, he has put together back-to-back incredible seasons in Seattle. But I think that teams will be just too cautious about it. And Jayden Daniels is not some consolation prize. Jayden Daniels may very well be way better than Michael Penix in the NFL. So give me Jayden Daniels. But also, I kind of like Michael Penix a lot. I go back and forth. I like both these quarterbacks. The people that don't like Michael Penix, they ultimately just go back to a couple things in their brain. One, he's lefty, which means it looks really weird and unnatural, and it doesn't look like a beautiful throw that we usually see. 2, he played in the Pac-12, so we don't really see him all that often, so there's just not a lot of eyeballs on him. But I love Michael Penix and Jayden Daniels. But you're telling me the Falcons could get an offense with Daniels under center, play action to Bijan, throw it to London or throw it to Pitts? Like, this could be, and I know that the Arthur Smith haters are going to come for me in the comment section, but if Arthur Smith can't make it work with those 4 guys, fine. Then we can fire him as soon as Halloween next year. But I think given the opportunity, Daniels, Bijan, London, and Pitts, that is just too good to pass on. Let's talk about our fifth and final QB target for Atlanta. This is Bo Nix, the Oregon check-down Charlie quarterback who had great numbers in Eugene, completed 77% of his passes. That was number one in the FBS, 4,500 yards, 51 total touchdowns. He's sneaky good with his legs. I don't think people realize that, but ultimately, I'm not interested in Bo Nix. If Bo Nix is ultimately taken by the Falcons in the top 10, that is when we riot. That is when we storm Flowery Branch and we demand a redo, because Bo Nix is not a guy I think is going to transform a franchise that you usually take with a top 10 selection. So no, I am not interested in Bo Nix. If Bo Nix falls to Atlanta in round 2, which I know that sounds crazy, but I think Bo Nix is going to have, I wouldn't say a bad combine, but what happens when they ask him to throw the ball down the field at Lucas Oil and it's not the checkdowns to his running backs that he's been doing all year? That might take a dip in his draft grade, and overall he might fall to round 2, which, hey, round 2 flyer, I can get behind that. But round 1, not interested. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate those of you that take time out of your day to come hang out with us here at Falcons Today. We're going to sign off, and we'll see you all later.